Hi, it's Tracy. I'm back. I just want to continue with you on this follow-up podcast series. So the subject of today is follow-up, moving leads forward. And I've been talking to you about everything from, the call time that you need to be calling in to what tools to use when you're making the follow-up calls, the messages. But what I want to really stress that is of utmost importance on your follow-up calls is the next action step. So when you're making your calls, if you are pre-planning and strategizing the leads and the calls that you're making, you want to always have the end objective in mind. And I know that's very common sense, basic concept, but it's just not happening. People are just randomly making calls, not really expecting to reach anyone. And then when they do, it's kind of like, oh, hi. And they just rely on personality to get them by. And they really don't have an action step, so nothing really happens. So we want to think about what is the end objective. So as a to-do for you, one of the first things I would say is you decide what piece of the database are you going to conquer? Now, some of you still have note cards. Fine, whatever. You might have a notebook with your connection sheets in it because you don't have software. But you decide what segment of the database are you going to call. Is it the 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9? What year? And you want to remember, you're not going to be able to do the whole database at once. So you do want to segment it and decide who to call. I would recommend probably starting with any leads that have come in to see you in the last 12 months, okay? And call those leads first. And with those leads, you would probably want to use a variety of, depending on how old they are and how they've been serviced, either the inquiry connection sheet, unless you already did that with them, and then I would use the follow-up to a visit connection sheet. But again, this is not a script, it's a system. The follow-up number 2 is really good because it's all about booking appointments. However, that's going to be with more of your current leads you've been communicating with because it's all about an appointment. If you've not talked to them for a long time, you really have to get back in there and get to know them better than you think you know them by asking open-ended questions, discovering what's happened or transpired since the last conversation. So again, if you break up your database and you organize it, then you can segment that by, okay, these 50 leads I'm going to use the inquiry sheet with, and I'm going to start with those right now. Don't try to get everything organized and then make your calls. Grab your first segment, determine which sheet, and start making the calls. And then as you're making them, what's really great is you'll be able to tweak what you're doing because it's like research. That's how we develop great training around here. You'll see what key phrases are getting you great answers, what isn't working well for you and what you want to leave out, maybe how you can revise a question. And you're going to start to master the process, which is why then you want to really continue forward and get through your database. Now, I realize that at some point in time, you're going to have to shift over to that different connection sheet. It might be the old lead connection sheet. It might be the follow-up number 2. But you're going to start to see patterns and trends. And this is great for you because it's going to make you better at your follow-up. Now, at the end of all of our connection sheets, you'll notice that there's a close. The checkmate close is what we call it. You always want to recap. So you're going to recap what you heard based on what you told me it sounds like, and just recap in your own words, which requires good listening skills. So as you're going through the connection sheets, don't be reading the next questions while they're answering. Really be actively listening. And then just go to the next question. It's very easy. They're short, open-ended questions. But in your close, you want to recap. Based on what you told me, it sounds like you started looking for a community about a year ago because there was a real scare with your mother when she fell. She since has gone to rehab. She's doing much better. Although something that stood out to me about our conversation today is that you still really are worrying about her a lot. And you even kind of mentioned that she seems a little bit fearful of having a recurring fall and no one getting there in time and helping her. And that both of you really don't have peace of mind about the current situation. Is that correct? And you'll hear them, they'll go, well, you know what, you're right. And then you could say, the main concern from what I've heard you say today is that your mother doesn't want to leave her home. She's been in her home for 30 years. She doesn't even know where to start. And for you, it's very overwhelming because you don't really have the time to go in and pack up her home and put it on the market. What I'd like to do is suggest that either you and I or you, your mother and I, sit down and just have an exploratory kind of conversation about how she's feeling, how you're feeling, and what steps would need to happen to even make this a possibility as far as getting comps on your home and seeing what it might sell for, what the timeline is. And then as far as things like packing, we have wonderful resources that are very, very cost effective that you can use. So I would cross one bridge at a time. And just let's start by seeing what's been on your mother's mind. What might work best? Would you guys be available by chance tomorrow or even this afternoon to stop by for a brief visit? So, and then if she says no, you might say, well, would it be better if perhaps I came to you? Or we met in a neutral place like a Starbucks, Panera Bread. Maybe that would be less threatening for your mother. And go from there. So I have to keep these podcasts short. So I have so much I want to tell you and say, and examples and scenarios and objections, but I have to keep it, I try to keep it under 5 minutes. But your goal is always close. Repeat needs back and have an optional close of 2 action steps. Tomorrow or today, would it be better if I came to you or you came here? So choice of 2. Remember, the more likely to pick the second option over the first. And you will get better with each and every call. You will get better. So don't be afraid. Go make it happen. I'm proud of you. Thank you.